cold, yeah.
What's going on, guys? Chris from AutoAcademics here, and we are going to take another first ride. Today we are with Harley-Davidson, so let's see what we can put a leg over. Today's ride is a 2025 Harley-Davidson Sportster S. It's a bike with heritage that never shied away from innovation, and it looks stinking cool too. So let's get started. Our bike today is spec'd in billiard gray paint with satin black aluminum cast wheels. The front is 17-inch with a rare 160/70 series tire, and in back is a 16-inch 180/70 series rear. The forks are 43mm with compression, rebound, and spring preload adjustability, and aluminum fork triple clamps. The rear is a linkage mounted piggyback monoshock with compression, rebound, and hydraulic spring preload adjustability. The unladen seat height is 30.1 inches, and while the bike's dimensions weren't horrible for my 5'8" frame, I wouldn't want it much taller or wider. But as you can see, I was still able to get secure footing on the ground while stopped. This bike was set up for individual riders, but a separate passenger pillion kit is available. The standard bars and forward foot controls provide a reach synonymous with the brand, and there are no fairings involved either. As with the seats, there's a conversion kit to relocate the foot controls to a mid position if you prefer. All lighting is LED, and the brakes consist of a single drilled 320mm rotor with 4-piston monoblock caliper up front, and a solid 260mm rotor with floating single piston caliper in back. ABS is standard. The power plant consists of a next-generation liquid-cooled with variable valve timing Revolution Max 1250T engine that makes a strong 121 horsepower and 93 foot-pounds of torque. A 6-speed transmission with final belt drive handles the gears, and the exhaust is a 2-into-1-into-2 example. The tank holds 3.1 gallons, and it's all held together by a high-strength, low-alloy steel trellis frame. In addition to the ABS I mentioned earlier, safety tech on this Sportster S includes traction control, a cornering drag torque slip control system, and enhanced lift mitigation. There's a 4-inch instrument gauge that shows the usual speed, gear, odometer, fuel level, and temp, and it's Bluetooth capable so you can pair your phone for calls, music, and even navigation via the Harley-Davidson app. There are also ride modes and a USB-C port to keep your phone charged. Alright, now that we've taken care of that, let's go for a ride.
Yeah, this thing's pretty cool. It is definitely more, how do I put this? How do I phrase this? More hardcore of a bike, but not in the cruiser way. Okay, so this is more along a sport bike type of bike. And this is more of a sport bike type of bike, so it's a little more aggressive. Now the funny thing is, you know, again, this is the first ride, so we're getting first impressions here. And the seating position is interesting because my feet are in front of me, even more so, I think, than on the street bob that I rode. And I'm sorry, you gotta forgive me for, you know, some of the pauses that I've got going on here, because this bike is actually taking a bit of concentration. Not because it's hard to ride, just because it is different. You know, the controls are in different places. There are quite a few more controls on this bike than the street bob had. So, you know, it's just different. So I have to use a little more brain power on that while I'm talking. But anyway, this bike has a strong engine. I believe it's 1250 cc, but I could be wrong. But it is strong. That part is strong. Now, one thing I don't care for that much is the engagement of shifts with the transmission. For something this sporty, I prefer an engagement that is a little more precise, a little more definitive, and this one is not like that. This one is, it's very subtle. There's not much movement in the shifter, and there's no clunk or anything either. You know, usually you get a bit of a clunk. Now, downshifting, you get the clunk. Downshifting, I do get that that definitive, okay, I'm downshifting. It's actually very subtle, and it's a little bit difficult to tell if you're in gear or not. You are. It goes into gear, but it just doesn't quite feel like it's going into gear. So I have to, you know, that's one of the things that I've been having to pay attention to. Obviously it's a muscle memory thing, and so if you were to own this bike, you would get used to that. That would become the norm, and you might even consider other bikes clunky with their gear engagement. But that's what I'm dealing with right now in this first ride. Now, this bike has a bit more horsepower than the other bikes and other Harleys, but it's also not quite as torquey as the other Harleys. So that is something to make note of as well. So this one is more like, again, like a sport bike where you're just getting on it and, you know, high revs screaming down the road, as opposed to the torquey let's, you know, cruise around town type of bike. I do like the riding position though, outside of, again, I have to get used to the forward controls, because this one definitely has the controls more forward, and this one's also a little challenging to lean. Now, if you saw in the specs overview, this has a fat front tire, and so while that's nice for some stability cruising around, you know, man, when you're trying to lean, this does not lean very quickly. It's pretty sluggish. Again, this is kind of like a hot rod of a bike, as opposed to, you know, a straight sport bike, but also as opposed to a cruiser. So that's something else to keep in mind if you're considering a bike like this. It definitely has the cool factor though. Like when I pulled up to the dealership, I mean, man, this was the first bike that caught my attention. And so I was just like, okay, I want to hop on that. As far as wind's concerned, you know, there are no fairings. It's pretty much a naked bike. So, you know, you're gonna get all the wind or whatever, but that's fine. You know, that's the purpose of these bikes is, you know, they're cool bikes. Let's see, brakes feel good. This has Brembo brakes, so they feel nice. Now, they're not dual rotor Brembos, which is interesting. It's only a single rotor, but it does have Brembo brakes. You see it has a nice digital gauge, which that's nice. It's very clear, very bright. It's easy to see my speed and my tachometer. Yeah, unlike most Harleys, this bike redlines at 9,000 RPM. That's kind of crazy. So I find myself, even though we're cruising at about 45 miles an hour here, we haven't really had any high speed stretches, but I do find myself kind of hanging out in 5th gear as opposed to, I'm sorry, that was 3rd gear, hanging out in 3rd gear as opposed to, you know, going up into the higher gears. But the throttle is pretty responsive. It's not quite as snappy as on a full-fledged sport bike, but it is pretty responsive. And you know, when you twist it, the power starts kicking in, especially if you're up around, say, 3,000 or 4,000 RPM. I am feeling a little bit of pressure on my palms, and this was a really short ride, you know, but I'm already feeling a little bit of pressure on my palms. They're starting to get a little tired. My legs feel fine. Mirrors they're circular. They're okay. They do the job, you know, because they're located on the ends of the bars, so that way they're out as far as possible, so you can see over your shoulder fairly decently. All right, let's see here. I'm gonna go through this corner here. We'll do a little bit of a pull. Oh yeah, this thing is fast. And I admit I did not fully wind that out, because with all of the wind and with my newness to this bike, you definitely feel the thrust kind of pulling you back. But it is torquey also, you know, it does have some decent torque. Again, not super strong down low, but for higher up, man, this thing, oh man, not bad. You know, this is definitely a bike for a certain type of rider. You know, it's not going to be for everybody, but if it speaks to you, then you're going to enjoy it. Oops. I'm trying to turn my turn signal off. There we go. Okay, so that was a quick ride, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell notification so you don't miss what we have coming up next. Chris from AutoAcademics. Thanks for watching.